Ryan adjusted the straps of his exploration pack and took a deep breath as the shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Zythera. From above, the planet looked alive. Vast forests glowed with soft, green light, and enormous crystal towers rose from the ground, reflecting colors that Ryan had never seen before. Streams of liquid light ran through the valleys, creating a network that looked like a living circuit. He felt both excitement and fear. He was the first human in decades to walk this world alone, and he knew that every step he took could change everything. The shuttle landed on a smooth, silver platform that hummed under his boots. The air was breathable, but it carried a strange sweetness that made him dizzy for a moment. He stepped out slowly, scanning the surroundings. Alien shapes moved between the crystal towers, some flying on transparent wings, others walking on limbs that seemed impossible for their size. Every being looked intelligent, aware, and curious. Ryan felt a shiver of awe. This was not just another planet. This was a civilization alive with thought and purpose, and he was an outsider stepping into their world. A figure appeared ahead of him, gliding effortlessly toward the shuttle. Ryan instinctively straightened his posture. The being was tall, taller than any human he had ever seen, with skin that shimmered like polished metal. Its eyes were large and luminous, glowing with intelligence and something deeper he could not identify. This was Arella, the alien queen. Even from a distance, her presence filled the space with power and authority. Ryan knew that he had entered a world where humans were not the strongest or the smartest, but his heart did not shrink. Curiosity pushed him forward. The queen stopped a few meters from the shuttle. Her gaze fixed on Ryan, and for a moment, he felt as though she was peering into his mind. He swallowed hard, realizing that diplomacy would be as important as courage. One of the alien envoys stepped forward beside Arella, bowing with elegance. The queen, however, did not speak immediately. Instead, she did something that no human had ever imagined. She lowered herself slightly, an act of respect, humility, or perhaps warning. Ryan froze, unsure how to respond. The queen's voice, when it came, was soft but carried authority. "Human," she said. "You are far from your world. You carry the weight of your species, whether you know it or not. You must tread carefully." Her words were strange in his ears, not because of the language, which was perfectly translated in his helmet, but because of the weight behind them. Every syllable seemed to carry history, memory, and an unspoken warning. Ryan nodded slowly. He wanted to show respect but also needed to maintain his human dignity. The envoy spoke next, guiding Ryan toward the palace that floated on crystal pillars above the glowing forest. The path was like nothing Ryan had ever walked before. Bridges of light connected the towers, and creatures with translucent bodies swam through the air, leaving trails of color behind them. He reached out, fascinated, but quickly withdrew his hand. Every detail was alive, intelligent, and dangerous in its own way. He realized that Zythera was not just a planet but a living network of beings, structures, and energy. Humans might never fully understand it, but he could learn if he stayed attentive. When they reached the palace, Ryan was stunned. It was massive, rising above the forest like a mountain of crystals. Each surface reflected the light differently, creating illusions that made it appear both solid and fluid at the same time. Doors of shimmering energy opened as they approached, welcoming him without words. Inside, the halls were vast, filled with floating lights and alien symbols that shifted as he walked past. He felt small and insignificant but also honored to witness such a place. The queen led him into a chamber at the heart of the palace. Here, the air felt heavier, as if every thought in the room carried weight. Arella turned to face him fully, her glowing eyes meeting his without fear or hesitation. She lowered herself again, this time closer to his height, and Ryan felt a mix of awe and confusion. Why would a being of her power humble herself to a human? There was a history here, a reason, and he wanted to know it, but he did not speak yet. Respect came first. Ryan looked around the chamber and noticed intricate designs carved into the walls. They told stories in patterns he could not yet read. Scenes of battles, alliances, and distant stars unfolded in the crystal carvings. He realized that Scythera had a history as long as any human civilization, perhaps longer. The Queen's actions were tied to this history, but the meaning was hidden from him. Patience would be necessary to uncover it. Finally, Ryan found his voice. "Queen Arella," he said carefully, bowing his head slightly. "I am honored to be here. I come in peace and with respect for your people." His words were simple, but he hoped they conveyed sincerity. The Queen's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, but her posture remained composed. "You are the first human to set foot on Scythera in many cycles," she said. "Few have been trusted to enter my halls. You must understand that your presence is not only curiosity but also a test." Ryan nodded again. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. He had come to study this world, but already he realized that his role might be far greater. Every choice he made could influence the future of an entire planet. As he followed Arella through the palace, he could feel the eyes of the beings around him. They watched with intelligence and caution, evaluating him. Some seemed curious, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. Ryan reminded himself to remain calm and observant. Understanding these beings was the key to survival and to achieving his mission. By the time the day ended, Ryan had glimpsed the beauty and danger of Scythera. The glowing forests, the floating towers, and the strange creatures created a world that was alive in ways he could not yet comprehend. And at the center of it all was Arella, the queen who humbled herself before him, a gesture that haunted his thoughts even as he tried to sleep. He wondered what history and events could make a being of her power lower herself to a human. The question would drive him forward as he explored the mysteries of Scythera. He knew one thing for certain: this journey would not be ordinary. His mind and courage would be tested, alliances would be formed and broken, and the reason behind the Queen's actions would reveal itself in ways that could change everything for humanity and Scythera. Ryan woke to the soft glow of the palace. The walls shimmered with light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Outside, the floating towers reflected the rising sun of Scythera, casting brilliant colors across the sky. He had barely slept, his mind filled with images of the Queen and the strange world around him. He knew he could not simply observe, he needed to understand. Every sound, every movement of this planet could hold meaning he had never imagined. A gentle chime echoed through the corridor. It was a signal, a call to action. Ryan straightened and followed the sound. The halls were alive with motion. Aliens of different shapes and sizes moved with purpose. Some carried instruments that emitted soft light, others walked on limbs that defied human understanding. All eyes seemed to follow him, but none approached. He was learning quickly that in Scythera, silence carried as much meaning as words. Ryan was led to a grand chamber where the Queen waited. Arella stood at the center, her presence commanding yet calm. She lowered herself slightly again as he entered. The gesture was deliberate, almost ceremonial, and Ryan felt the weight of it deeply. It was clear now that this was not a one-time act but a sign of something important. He wondered what event or memory had driven her to show such humility before a human. "You are awake," Arella said, her voice calm yet strong. "Good. Your arrival is timely. She gestured to a seat that glowed softly. Ryan hesitated before sitting. The chair was unlike anything he had seen. It seemed to adjust itself to his posture automatically, offering comfort without effort. The Queen's eyes never left him. There was intelligence there, curiosity, and a quiet sadness that tugged at his mind. You honor us by being here, she continued. Few humans have ever walked in my halls. Your presence is unexpected, yet it is not unwelcome. Ryan nodded, trying to maintain his composure. The palace was magnificent, but he knew that appearances could hide danger. Arella's act of lowering herself was a mystery, and he needed answers. I am here to learn and to understand, Ryan said. I come with respect for your people and your world. His words were simple, but he hoped they conveyed honesty. The Queen studied him for a moment, her eyes glowing faintly. Then she spoke again, her tone softer this time. Curiosity is the path to knowledge, but it can also bring danger, Arella said. There are forces within my world that do not welcome change. Some see outsiders as threats. Some see humans as weak. Yet your arrival may shift the balance. Ryan's heart quickened. He had expected challenges, but he had not realized that his presence alone could be a catalyst for conflict. The Queen moved closer, her form shimmering slightly as she did. She lowered herself further, her hands hovering just above the ground. Ryan's eyes widened. This was more than a gesture of respect. It was an invitation, a silent plea for trust and understanding. He realized that the Queen was not only testing him but also reaching out in hope. You must walk carefully, Arella said. There are those who would see me removed. They would use violence to claim power. You may be the first human to witness what lies beneath our surface, and perhaps the first to help prevent disaster. Her words were clear, yet Ryan felt there was much left unsaid. He could sense her burden, heavy and ancient, pressing down on her despite her strength. Ryan stood, trying to show confidence. I will help if I can, he said. I do not know your customs fully, but I will do my best to understand and respect them. The Queen's eyes softened, and for the first time, Ryan felt a connection beyond fear or awe. They were two beings from different worlds, yet here, in this moment, their paths were aligned. Arella gestured toward a balcony that overlooked the glowing forest. The view was breathtaking. Streams of light ran through the trees like veins, and the crystal towers reflected every color of the sun. Aliens moved across the landscape, each performing tasks that seemed ordinary to them but magical to Ryan. He realized that Scythera was alive in a way that no human planet had ever been. Every action mattered. You will see wonders, the Queen said, her voice quiet now. But you will also see threats. You must understand that knowledge carries responsibility. Do not take lightly what you learn here. Ryan nodded again, feeling the gravity of her words. He had come for discovery, but he now knew that his mission had shifted. It was no longer simply observation. He was part of a story much larger than himself. Arello moved closer to a glowing console and pressed a symbol that caused a holographic map to appear. The map showed regions of the planet, energy flows, and zones marked with symbols he did not recognize. These are the areas most affected by conflict, she said. Some of my advisors seek to overthrow me. They believe they can claim power. They do not understand that without balance, Scythera itself could be destroyed. Ryan studied the map carefully. He could see patterns in the energy flows and the concentration of the alien population. His mind, trained to analyze and adapt, began forming ideas on how he could help. He realized that his human perspective, though limited, offered insight that the aliens had not considered. His presence was not just symbolic. It could be strategic. "You have a keen mind," Arella said, noticing his concentration. "Perhaps that is why you were guided here. Perhaps humans are more capable than my people have believed. But you must remember, you are far from home. You cannot act without understanding the consequences. Trust must be earned." Ryan felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had always believed that humans could achieve great things, but here, in the palace of the alien queen, he saw the truth of it. Courage and intelligence mattered, but so did patience, empathy, and careful action. He realized that his journey on Scythera would not only test his skills but also his character. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the balcony, Ryan and Arella continued their conversation. She spoke of history, of past wars, of alliances, and betrayals. He listened intently, knowing that every detail could be important. And through it all, the image of the queen lowering herself stayed in his mind. It was a gesture of trust, of hope, and perhaps of desperation. By the end of the morning, Ryan understood that he had crossed a threshold. He was no longer a visitor. He was a participant in the future of Scythera. Every choice he made from this moment on could affect the queen, her people, and the planet itself. And though he felt the weight of responsibility, he also felt a spark of determination. He would learn, adapt, and face whatever challenges came next. Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the air of Scythera fill his lungs. This world was magnificent and dangerous, beautiful and complex. And at the center of it all stood Arella, the queen who had humbled herself before him, a living symbol of a history he did not yet fully know. The reason behind her gesture was still hidden, but Ryan knew that discovering it would be the key to understanding the planet, the queen, and perhaps even himself. Ryan had spent several cycles in the palace and had begun to understand the rhythm of Scythera. Every movement, every gesture, seemed to carry meaning. The aliens watched him closely, yet many were polite and curious. He had begun to trust that his presence was accepted, at least for now. However, he felt an undercurrent of tension, a subtle energy that suggested not everything was as calm as it seemed. One morning, Arella called him to the observation hall. The room was high above the crystal forests, surrounded by transparent walls that showed the entire capital. Ryan could see the glowing towers, the flowing streams of light, and the alien citizens moving through their daily routines. Everything looked serene, but the queen's expression told him otherwise. She did not lower herself this time, but her eyes carried concern. "There is unrest," Arella said quietly, her gaze fixed on a distant district. "Not all of my people are loyal. Some have grown restless, thinking my rule weak or outdated. They whisper of rebellion, and they are willing to act." Ryan frowned. He had expected political challenges, but seeing the extent of the problem from this vantage point made it real. The palace itself, for all its beauty, was surrounded by a network of factions ready to challenge her authority. Ryan moved closer to the holographic map that hovered in the room. Symbols blinked in red and orange, marking areas of tension. He could see small groups gathering in hidden locations, training and arming themselves. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "For many cycles," Arella replied. "It has always existed, but it was kept in balance. Recently, my advisors have disagreed with my decisions. Their disagreement has turned into resentment. If unchecked, it will lead to chaos." Ryan studied the map carefully. He realized that the problem was not just physical but also strategic. These factions had knowledge, resources, and influence. Any confrontation could endanger the entire city. "I may be able to help," Ryan said cautiously. "I am not like your people. I see patterns differently, and I can think in ways that do not follow your traditions." Arella looked at him intently. "Your perspective may indeed help. But you must remember, what you see as strategy may be interpreted as interference. Every action must be measured carefully." They spent hours reviewing the map, analyzing potential threats and weak points in the city's defenses. Ryan realized that his human experience in planning and adaptation could be useful. He suggested ways to move loyalists discreetly, communicate safely, and anticipate attacks. Arella nodded, noting each idea. The Queen was careful, but her trust in him grew with every conversation. Later, Ryan walked through the palace corridors. He observed the staff, listening to their conversations and watching their reactions to the Queen. Some moved with confidence, others with suspicion. It became clear that not all who served Arella were loyal. Whispers of conspiracy floated through the halls, subtle enough to avoid detection but strong enough to create tension. Ryan felt the weight of being human in an alien world. He was an observer, but his actions could influence outcomes. In the afternoon, an incident occurred that confirmed his fears. A group of guards approached him with urgency. "You must come quickly," one said. Ryan followed them to a lower level of the palace, where a small squad of rebels had been discovered attempting to sabotage the energy conduits that powered part of the city. The rebels were humanoid in shape but had unique features that marked them as alien. They were armed with devices capable of immense destruction. Arella arrived moments later, her presence commanding immediate attention. She did not lower herself this time. She issued orders that were precise and swift. Ryan watched as loyalists moved with skill, disarming the rebels and securing the area. The confrontation was brief, but it revealed a dangerous truth: the Queen's position was fragile, and the loyalty of her people could not be assumed. "You see now," Arella said to Ryan as the rebels were escorted away, "why your presence is significant. Humans are outsiders, yes, but you bring a perspective my people do not expect. They underestimate what you can offer." Ryan nodded. He felt a mix of pride and concern. The situation was serious, and any mistake could lead to disaster. That night, Ryan and Arella walked along a balcony that overlooked the city. The lights of the towers reflected in the flowing streams below. "Why me?" Ryan asked quietly. Why would the Queen of Scythera involve a human in such matters? Arella's gaze softened, but her expression remained serious. "Humans are different," she said. "Your species sees opportunity where others see rules. Your courage is not measured in power alone but in will and adaptability. Long ago, humans helped my ancestors in ways that are remembered even now. Your presence may restore balance once again, if you are wise and careful." Ryan felt a chill. The weight of history and responsibility pressed on him. He realized that he was not only observing this world, he was part of a story that had begun long before he was born. Over the next cycles, Ryan learned to anticipate threats, to read the subtle movements of the palace staff, and to interpret the patterns of alien behavior. He trained alongside loyalists, learning how to defend the city without drawing attention. Every exercise, every decision, was a test. Arella observed him closely, offering guidance but allowing him space to act independently. One day, while reviewing patrol routes, Ryan noticed an anomaly. A section of the city had gone unusually quiet. He alerted Arella immediately. They discovered a hidden gathering of rebels planning an attack during the upcoming cycle. Ryan's insight had uncovered the plot before it could unfold. The Queen was impressed. She acknowledged that his human perspective had prevented potential disaster. "You have begun to understand our world," Arella said. "But you must remember, knowledge is not enough. Trust, courage, and careful action are equally important. Do not underestimate the cost of failure." Ryan nodded solemnly. He understood that his role was growing. He was no longer just an observer, he was a participant, and his actions carried weight far beyond his own safety. As the day ended, Ryan looked out over the glowing forests. The streams of light moved like veins, carrying energy through the planet. The crystal towers reflected 1,000 colors. The beauty of Scythera was undeniable, but beneath it lay tension, danger, and uncertainty. He knew that the next cycle would bring greater challenges, and that the Queen's act of lowering herself had been not only a gesture of respect but also a signal of trust, hope, and warning. Ryan understood now that his journey was no longer about exploration alone. It was about protection, strategy, and understanding the delicate balance that kept Scythera alive. Every choice mattered, every action had consequence, and every moment could change the future. The hidden threat was real, but so was the opportunity. And Ryan was determined to rise to it. The day began with a pale light spreading over the crystal towers of Scythera. Ryan walked through the palace corridors, his mind heavy with thoughts about the rebels and the fragile balance of the city. He had grown more confident in understanding the patterns of the alien world, but there was still one question he could not answer. Why had the Queen lowered herself before him? The gesture had been unlike anything he had seen in humans or aliens. It was humility and respect combined, yet it also seemed to carry fear and history. He needed to know. Arella summoned him to the Hall of Memories, a room deep within the palace. The walls were lined with shimmering panels that reflected images not of the present, but of the past. Ryan had seen these panels before, but he had not understood their significance. Now, as he stepped inside, the air felt heavier, charged with centuries of memory and emotion. The Queen's presence was calm, but there was a gravity to her that made Ryan feel both honored and small. "You wish to understand why I humbled myself before you," Arella said quietly. Her voice filled the room, echoing softly against the crystal walls. Ryan nodded. "I do. I want to understand the meaning of your gesture. It is not simple respect. There is history behind it, and I want to know." The Queen's eyes softened, and for the first time, she smiled faintly. It was a smile of sorrow and pride intertwined. "You are correct," she said. "It is not simple. It is a tradition, a memory, and a debt. Long ago, humans arrived on Scythera in small numbers. They were explorers, like you, seeking knowledge and peace. But a great war swept through our planet, a war that threatened the very survival of my ancestors. In those times, humans intervened without asking for reward or recognition. They acted with courage and compassion, saving lives and restoring hope. Your people have always been remembered, though you may not know it." Ryan listened intently, absorbing every word. He had heard of humans helping alien species in stories, but this was different. This was personal history, alive in the memory of the Queen. He realized that her humility was not weakness but honor. She was acknowledging a debt carried across centuries, a debt that her ancestors had never forgotten. "The act of lowering myself before you," Arella continued, "is not common among my people. It is reserved for those who have earned trust through courage and kindness. You, a human, represent that legacy. It is also a warning. My enemies do not know the meaning of this gesture. They see it as unusual, perhaps even weak. But it signals my intention to honor what humans have done for my people. It is a silent message of alliance and warning at the same time. Ryan felt a deep respect for the Queen. He understood now that her power was not only in her strength but in her wisdom and understanding of history. Her act was a bridge between worlds, a reminder that courage and honor transcended species. He felt a responsibility he had not felt before. If humans had once saved her people, then his presence here was more than exploration. It was continuation, a chance to honor the legacy of his ancestors. Why me? Ryan asked. Why now? Humans have been absent for many cycles. Why choose me to witness and participate in this? Arella's eyes glowed softly. You have qualities that are rare, she said. Courage, insight, and respect for life. You see patterns and consequences that others might overlook. The rebels in my city do not expect a human to intervene. Your presence may tip the balance, not by force alone, but by perspective. Humans think differently, act differently, and sometimes that difference is exactly what is needed. Ryan felt a mixture of pride and humility. He realized that the Queen's trust was not given lightly. It was earned, but also necessary. He had a role to play, a responsibility that extended beyond himself and even beyond the city. The history of humans and Scythera was alive, and he had become part of it. Arella led him to a panel that displayed a scene from the ancient war. The images were vivid, showing humans arriving in small ships, facing dangers and hostile creatures without hesitation. They carried simple tools but acted with extraordinary skill and bravery. They rescued wounded aliens, repaired vital structures, and even negotiated peace among warring factions. Ryan watched in awe. These humans were not soldiers or conquerors. They were explorers, helpers, and heroes in their own way. They left no monuments, Arella said softly. They asked for nothing. Yet their actions shaped the survival of my people. I lowered myself before you to honor that courage and to remind my people that strength comes in many forms. Not all power is violence. Not all loyalty is demanded. Some is earned through respect and action. Ryan understood now that humility and power were not opposites. The Queen's gesture carried both. It was a lesson in leadership, trust, and honor. He realized that his own species could learn from this. Humans often measured strength in dominance, but here was proof that wisdom and courage could shape worlds without force. Your role here is clear, Arella continued. You must learn, observe, and act when necessary. You will face danger, yes, but also opportunity. The rebels will test us, but your perspective may help prevent catastrophe. You carry the legacy of your people, and now you carry the trust of mine. Ryan nodded solemnly. He felt the weight of history and responsibility, but he also felt ready. Over the next cycles, Ryan trained with the Queen and her loyalists. He learned the ways of Scythera, studied the patterns of alien behavior, and developed strategies to protect the city. Every lesson was important, every observation counted. He grew in confidence and understanding, guided by Arella but allowed to act independently. The Queen's trust encouraged him, and he began to see the rebels not just as enemies but as challenges to be solved with insight and courage. At night, Ryan often returned to the Hall of Memories. He watched the images of humans and aliens working together, learning that history was alive in ways he had never imagined. The Queen's secret was no longer a mystery. It was a living lesson, a bridge between species, and a call to action. He understood that courage, respect, and wisdom could change the course of events, even on a world as complex as Scythera. and through it all, he remembered the moment the Queen had lowered herself before him. It was not just a gesture. It was a message of trust, history, and hope. A message that would guide him through the challenges to come. The palace of Scythera was alive with tension. Every corridor, every chamber seemed to vibrate with the energy of anticipation. Ryan had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the Queen's world, yet today was different. Arella summoned him early in the cycle, her expression sharp and serious. She did not lower herself this time. Instead, she stood tall, her eyes glowing with determination. "We cannot wait any longer," Arella said. "The rebels are gaining strength. They have begun to coordinate attacks that could destabilize the entire city. We must act." Ryan nodded. He had anticipated this, but the weight of responsibility pressed on him. The city was alive with millions of beings who depended on the Queen's leadership. One wrong move could turn curiosity and distrust into violence. Arella led him to a hidden chamber filled with alien technology. The walls shimmered with panels that displayed the city, energy flows, and the positions of key individuals. It was a command center unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. He was impressed by the complexity, yet he understood the logic behind it. Every symbol, every light, represented life, risk, and opportunity. "We must form an alliance," Arella said. "Not just with loyalists, but with those factions who are undecided. If we act with strength alone, we may unite the rebels against us. We need insight, strategy, and trust. Your perspective as a human may be exactly what we need." Ryan felt a surge of determination. He was ready to contribute, to act not as a visitor, but as a participant in Scythera's future. Over the next cycles, Ryan and Arella worked together, traveling through the city in secret. They met with alien leaders who were hesitant, suspicious, or curious. Ryan listened carefully, observing gestures, tone, and behavior. He realized that many conflicts were based on misunderstandings or fear of change. By speaking plainly, calmly, and logically, he helped build trust where the Queen's authority alone was not enough. One evening, they entered a district known for its floating gardens. The alien leader there, Terrell, had remained neutral in the growing tension. Ryan observed Terrell's movements, his careful balance among the floating platforms, and his cautious approach to visitors. "You fear losing control," Ryan said gently, "but you also fear making the wrong choice. You can support the Queen without risking your position." Terrell studied him silently, then nodded slightly. Arella smiled faintly. Ryan's insight had created an ally. As they continued, Ryan and Arella encountered rebels training in hidden chambers. The rebels were armed with devices that could disrupt the energy flow of the city. Ryan noted their patterns, their timing, and their weaknesses. He suggested subtle interventions to Arella, minor adjustments that would prevent attacks without revealing their knowledge to the rebels. The Queen listened, impressed. His human perspective was proving invaluable. One day, while reviewing patrol routes, they discovered a planned attack on a critical energy tower. "If they succeed," Arella said, her voice tense, "it could cause cascading failures across the city." Ryan studied the holographic display. The rebels had chosen a moment when the city's defenses were weakest. "We can prevent it," he said. "But we must act quickly and coordinate with both loyalists and neutral factions. Timing will be everything." Arella nodded. "Then we move at once. Lead the plan." Ryan felt the responsibility settle on his shoulders. He drew upon his experience, analyzing the terrain, predicting the rebels' movements, and preparing contingencies. He coordinated with loyalist leaders, explaining strategies clearly and simply. The human's ability to think differently allowed him to anticipate challenges that aliens had overlooked. When the time came, Ryan and Arella moved swiftly. Loyalists took positions across the energy tower, while neutral factions monitored key approaches. The rebels advanced, unaware of the trap. Ryan watched from a vantage point, signaling adjustments to the teams below. His heart raced, yet his mind remained focused. Every decision mattered. The rebels struck, attempting to activate their devices, but loyalists intercepted them at key points. Ryan's predictions had been correct. The attackers were forced into positions where they could do no harm. Arella's presence inspired confidence, and the rebels began to surrender, realizing they had underestimated the combined strategy of the Queen and the human advisor. After the skirmish, Arella approached Ryan. "You see what your presence has achieved?" she asked. Ryan nodded, feeling both pride and humility. "This is only the beginning," he said. "There are more challenges ahead, but we have shown that cooperation and understanding can prevent disaster." Arella smiled, a rare expression of relief and admiration. The alliance grew stronger with each encounter. Ryan helped mediate disputes between alien factions, showing that human reasoning could bridge gaps that tradition alone could not. Loyalists and neutral parties began to work together, guided by strategy rather than fear. The city itself seemed to respond, the energy flows stabilizing, the citizens moving with purpose rather than uncertainty. Ryan also observed the Queen more closely. Arella was not only a leader but a teacher. She guided him in diplomacy, strategy, and understanding alien behavior. He realized that humility and strength could coexist. The act of lowering herself had been both history and lesson. Now, he was beginning to understand the depth of her wisdom. One evening, as the sun reflected off the crystal towers, Ryan and Arella walked along a balcony overlooking the city. "We have made progress," Arella said, her voice calm. "But there are still those who seek to disrupt balance. We must remain vigilant. You have proven yourself capable, Ryan, but your journey is far from over." Ryan nodded, feeling the truth of her words. The rebels were only one threat among many. He understood that Scythera was a world of complexity, where strategy, trust, and courage would always be tested. Over the next cycles, Ryan continued to strengthen alliances, prepare defenses, and anticipate rebel actions. Every small victory built confidence, but he remained cautious. Arella had taught him that power alone did not guarantee stability. Understanding, insight, and human perspective could shape outcomes in ways that strength alone could not. By the end of the cycle, the city was more stable, yet tension remained. The rebels were not defeated completely, only contained. Ryan and Arella knew that future conflicts were inevitable. But the dangerous alliance they had formed, combining human ingenuity and alien wisdom, had shown that cooperation could overcome even the most entrenched threats. Ryan looked out over the glowing forests and crystal towers. He realized that his role on Scythera was no longer temporary. He had become part of the story, part of the history that the Queen had honored when she first humbled herself. His actions mattered. His courage mattered. And the bond he had begun to form with Arella would guide both of them through the challenges to come. For the first time, Ryan felt fully aware of the weight of responsibility, yet also of the potential for greatness. The dangerous alliance was not only a strategy for survival. It was a promise that humans and aliens could work together to protect life, restore balance, and honor the legacies of the past. And as he prepared for the challenges of the next cycle, he knew that the Queen's trust and the lessons of history would remain his guide. The air over Scythera was thick with tension. Ryan stood beside Arella on the highest balcony of the palace, looking down at the city below. Red lights blinked in districts where rebel forces had gathered. The rebels were organized, stronger than anyone had expected. The Queen's loyalists moved carefully through the streets, preparing to defend key positions. Ryan felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Every decision, every signal, every movement could change the outcome of the battle. Arella's eyes glowed softly, reflecting both determination and concern. "This battle will decide the future of Scythera," she said. "We cannot falter. Your strategies will be as important as the courage of our people." Ryan nodded, gripping the railing. He had prepared for this moment for cycles, studying the patterns of the rebels, planning contingencies, and learning from Arella's wisdom. Now, it was time to act. The first wave of rebels advanced toward the energy conduits that powered the central city. Ryan signaled to loyalist leaders, coordinating movements with precision. Using a combination of human tactics and alien agility, they created barriers, controlled access points, and anticipated the rebels' attacks. The city became a chessboard, each piece moving with strategy, intelligence, and courage. Ryan observed a group attempting to breach a secondary power tower. He quickly calculated their approach, signaling a team of loyalists to intercept. They moved silently, using the alien structures to their advantage. The rebels were surprised by the efficiency and coordination. For the first time, they faced opposition that combined strategy, insight, and understanding beyond their expectations. Arella joined Ryan on the field, her presence a symbol of leadership. She moved with grace and precision, issuing commands and making decisions that inspired confidence. Her loyalists followed without hesitation. Ryan realized that the Queen's strength was not only in her power but also in her ability to lead, guide, and trust others to act. As the battle intensified, Ryan spotted a group of rebels attempting to sabotage a floating bridge that connected key towers. If the bridge fell, it would cut off loyalist reinforcements and create chaos. Ryan calculated a quick plan, coordinating with a team of humans and loyalists to intercept. They moved swiftly, neutralizing the threat before the rebels could act. The precision of timing, combined with Ryan's understanding of patterns, turned potential disaster into advantage. The rebels regrouped, realizing that they had underestimated the Queen and her human advisor. They began using more aggressive tactics, deploying devices designed to disrupt energy flows. Ryan quickly analyzed the patterns and signaled adjustments to loyalist positions. His human perspective allowed him to see weaknesses the aliens had overlooked, turning their strategy into defense. Amid the chaos, Ryan noticed a group of young rebels trapped in a narrow corridor. They were armed but inexperienced. He made a split decision to intercept and disarm them without violence. Using calm words, gestures, and careful movements, he convinced them to surrender. The act earned respect from both loyalists and neutral factions. Ryan understood that courage was not always about force. Sometimes it was about understanding, communication, and humanity. The battle raged across the city for cycles. Energy towers flickered, streets echoed with sounds of movement and resistance, and loyalists fought alongside neutral factions who had been convinced to join the Queen's cause. Ryan moved from point to point, coordinating strategies, making quick decisions, and learning more about alien behavior with every encounter. At one point, a powerful rebel device activated near the central energy tower. It began to drain energy, threatening to collapse parts of the city. Ryan analyzed the situation quickly. Using a combination of human logic and alien technology, he devised a way to redirect the energy flow temporarily, preventing disaster. Loyalists moved in to neutralize the device while Arella commanded reinforcements. The maneuver worked flawlessly, showcasing the strength of their combined alliance. During the climax of the battle, Ryan faced a direct confrontation with the rebel leader, a being skilled and determined. They moved through the corridors of the city, avoiding detection while Ryan calculated every step. Using clever tactics and observation, Ryan managed to outmaneuver the rebel, disarming him without harm. The act demonstrated that intelligence and strategy often surpassed brute force. By the end of the cycle, the rebels were defeated. Their forces were scattered, leadership neutralized, and their devices rendered harmless. Loyalists and neutral factions had gained confidence, trust, and respect for one another. Arella stood at the center of the city, her eyes glowing with pride and relief. Ryan approached her, exhausted but satisfied. "You have done well," Arella said, her voice calm and steady. "Your insight, courage, and understanding have saved the city. You have proven that humans are not only observers but participants in shaping the future of worlds." Ryan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The battle had tested his mind, courage, and understanding of Scythera. He realized that humanity had potential far beyond what many believed. The city slowly began to stabilize. Energy flows returned to normal, citizens resumed their routines, and loyalists and neutral factions celebrated their success. Ryan walked through the streets, observing the gratitude, relief, and hope of the people. He knew the challenges were not over, but the first major victory had been achieved. Arella and Ryan stood together on a high balcony, overlooking the city. "This battle is over," she said, "but peace must be maintained. We have shown that cooperation between humans and aliens can overcome even the greatest threats. Your presence has changed perceptions, inspired loyalty, and strengthened bonds that were fragile before." Ryan nodded, feeling the weight of the journey he had undertaken. The Queen's act of humility, the trust she had placed in him, and the lessons of history had guided him. He had not only survived the battle but contributed to the survival and prosperity of Scythera. The experience had reshaped his understanding of courage, responsibility, and human potential. As night fell, the crystal towers reflected the stars above, creating a dazzling display of light and color. Ryan looked at the horizon, thinking of Earth and the legacy of humans who had once helped this planet. He realized that his actions were part of a continuum, connecting the past, present, and future. Humanity was capable of greatness, not just on their own world, but across the stars. Arella lowered herself slightly before him, as she had done at his arrival. This time, the gesture was different. It was not a plea or warning but a recognition of partnership, trust, and shared triumph. Ryan understood fully now the meaning behind her actions. History, courage, and respect had come together to shape the destiny of Scythera. And he had played a vital role. The battle had ended, but the story was far from over. Challenges would continue, alliances would be tested, and the fragile balance of the planet would demand vigilance. Yet Ryan knew that he and Arella, working together, could face whatever came next. Their bond, formed in strategy, courage, and understanding, was stronger than any threat. And as the city settled into quiet, Ryan felt a deep sense of purpose. He had seen the power of collaboration, the strength of insight, and the potential of humans in a universe that often underestimated them. The Queen's trust, the loyalty of her people, and the lessons of history would guide him as he prepared for the next chapter of Scythera's story. The morning after the battle, Scythera was quiet. The city gleamed under the soft light of the twin suns, reflecting in crystal towers and flowing energy streams. Citizens moved carefully, repairing minor damage, and reconnecting energy conduits disrupted during the conflict. Ryan walked through the streets, accompanied by loyalists and neutral factions who had now joined the Queen's cause. The atmosphere was filled with relief and hope, but Ryan knew that maintaining peace required careful attention. Arella called him to the Hall of Councils, a chamber where leaders of the city gathered. The walls shimmered with energy, showing the history of Scythera and its people. This was where the decisions of the future would be made. Arella stood at the center, tall and radiant, her eyes reflecting pride and gratitude. Ryan felt a deep respect for her. The Queen had not only trusted him in the battle but had allowed him to act with autonomy, valuing his perspective as much as her own wisdom. "You have done more than survive," Arella said to him. "You have shaped the future of Scythera. Your courage, insight, and understanding have united factions that were once divided. The city stands stronger because of your actions. And for that, you have my trust and my respect." Ryan bowed slightly, feeling both honored and humbled. He realized that the bond formed in battle had grown into something lasting. Trust was no longer a gesture, it was a partnership. As the council began, leaders of neutral factions expressed their gratitude and shared their insights. Ryan observed carefully, learning more about alien governance, social structure, and diplomacy. His human perspective, combined with the lessons from Arella, allowed him to mediate discussions that might have become heated. He saw that peace was not simply the absence of conflict but the careful balance of understanding, respect, and collaboration. During the council, a young alien approached Ryan. She had observed him during the battle and was curious about his actions. "Human," she said, her voice quiet, "how did you know what to do? How could you see patterns that we could not?" Ryan smiled gently. "I observed carefully, listened, and thought about the consequences of each action. I also trusted those around me. Courage is important, but so is understanding." The young alien nodded, absorbing the lesson. Ryan realized that even small acts of teaching could create long-term impact. After the council, Arella invited Ryan to a private chamber. The room was filled with light reflecting from the crystals, soft and warm. The Queen lowered herself slightly, not as a plea but as a sign of respect and recognition. "You have proven the value of humans," she said. "Your presence has restored balance and strengthened trust among my people. You carry the legacy of your ancestors and have created a new legacy of your own. You have shown that courage, wisdom, and respect can cross worlds and species." Ryan felt a surge of humility and pride. He realized that this moment was more than recognition. It was the culmination of cycles of learning, strategy, and courage. The Queen's gesture, repeated now in acknowledgement rather than warning, symbolized the connection between humans and Scythera. He had earned a place in their history, not as an outsider, but as a trusted participant. The following cycles were spent in rebuilding and strengthening the city. Ryan assisted in training loyalists, helping them understand new strategies and ways to anticipate future challenges. Neutral factions shared knowledge and resources, creating a network of cooperation stronger than any before. Ryan observed with satisfaction as humans and aliens worked together seamlessly. The HFY spirit, human courage, intelligence, and adaptability had made a real difference on this distant world. One evening, Ryan walked along the balcony overlooking the glowing forest. Arella joined him. The streams of light below pulsed gently, reflecting the calm after the storm. "You have changed Scythera," she said softly. "Not with force, but with perspective and courage. My people now see humans differently, and I hope your presence will inspire others of your species to act with wisdom and compassion. Ryan looked out at the horizon, thinking of Earth and the humans who had once helped Zythera long ago. I hope so, he replied. Humans have much to offer, but we must learn to act with responsibility and understanding, just as I learned here. Courage alone is not enough. Arella nodded, her expression serene. In the weeks that followed, Ryan became a trusted advisor to the Queen. He helped develop systems of governance that integrated human strategies with alien traditions, creating a balance that strengthened the city and ensured long-term stability. Factions that were once divided now worked together, inspired by shared purpose and mutual respect. The lessons of the battle remained clear: collaboration, insight, and courage could achieve what force alone never could. One day, Arella took Ryan to the Hall of Memories once more. The panels showed scenes from the past, including humans arriving to help during the ancient war. Ryan watched with reverence. You see now, Arella said, the trust one placed in you was not only for this battle but for the future. History connects our worlds, and your actions have ensured that connection continues. Ryan understood fully. He had become a part of history, a bridge between species, and a symbol of human potential. The final act of recognition came during a city-wide ceremony. Citizens of Zythera gathered, both loyalists and former neutral factions. Arella stood at the center, and beside her, Ryan. The Queen addressed her people, recounting the bravery, strategy, and insight that had preserved the city. She emphasized the role of trust and cooperation, and how a human had demonstrated the value of perspective and courage. The crowd responded with respect, honor, and gratitude. Ryan felt a profound sense of fulfillment. As the ceremony ended, Arella lowered herself before Ryan one final time. This was no plea, no warning. It was acknowledgement of his role, respect for his actions, and recognition of the bond they had formed. Ryan bowed in return, understanding the depth of the gesture. The Queen's act symbolized the culmination of history, courage, and human potential. Ryan knew that his time on Zythera had changed him. He had faced danger, learned new ways of thinking, and discovered that humans could influence worlds far beyond their own. The Queen's trust, the loyalty of her people, and the lessons of the battle had created a legacy that would endure. Zythera was stronger, wiser, and connected to humanity in ways that would shape the future. As night fell, the city shimmered with calm energy. Ryan looked toward the horizon, thinking of what had been achieved and what lay ahead. The battle was over, trust had been earned, and the bond between species had been strengthened. He realized that courage, insight, and respect could cross worlds, and that humans had a place in shaping the destiny of planets far from their own. And in the quiet of the palace, beneath the glowing crystals, Ryan understood fully why the Queen had first lowered herself. It was not a gesture of weakness but a bridge between worlds, a recognition of past deeds, and a trust that could change the course of history. The memory would stay with him always, a guiding light for the future of Zythera and humanity alike.